The sales landscape is changing faster than ever. Buyer expectations are evolving. There's new tools, there's new technology which are being used, and competition is tougher.
You're listening to the Sales Today podcast, and I'm your host, Fred Copestake. On this podcast, we explore how sales professionals can develop a modern approach to winning business, the application of virtual selling techniques, how to create meaningful business relationships, and much more. Why not take our free collaborative selling scorecard to see how your sales approach suits today's environment? You'll find a link in the show notes.
And welcome to this episode of the Sales Today podcast with me, your host, Fred Copestake. The last in the mini-series, which is breaking down the ethical model. So the ethical model is core to my book, Ethical Selling. And what we've done is set out over the past 6 episodes, parts of that model, just to give a bit of a flavour, a bit of an overview. Obviously, there's a lot more depth there in the book. And this last part, this last element, the L of ethical, is about learning and growth. Learning and growth. And so, here's the thing. Top salespeople know success isn't a destination, it's a journey. Sounds a bit trite, sounds a bit contrived, but that's absolutely true. If you want to stay relevant, if you want to stay resilient, if you want to stay effective in a world which is changing pretty fast, you've got to commit to continuous learning and growth. So what we'll do in this episode, keeping it short, keeping it sweet, is explore what it means to adopt a growth mindset, why reflection is so powerful, and how you can develop habits that will keep you improving every day, every single day. But let's just start with reality check. I've mentioned it, but I want to go back. The sales landscape is changing faster than ever. Buyer expectations are evolving. There's new tools, there's new technology which are being used, and competition is tougher. So, we could go into all of those in great depth, but just that list, buyer expectations, new tools and technologies, competition, you're probably thinking, yeah, agreed. And so the skills that got you where you are today won't necessarily keep you there tomorrow. And so what separates good from great? It's a growth mindset. Great salespeople embrace challenges, they seek feedback, and they'll learn from their experience. And now, whether that's a win or a loss, they'll know that every call, every meeting, every deal, it's an opportunity to improve. So learning and growth, they aren't really optional. And you might say, yeah, of course you're going to say that, Fred, you're a trainer. No, I'd say they are essential to survival, to being successful. So I just want to come around growth mindset. And this concept of growth mindset comes from Dr. Carol Dweck. And she talks about how people who have a growth mindset believe their abilities and skills can be developed through effort, learning, and persistence. So from a sales point of view, what does that look like? So, for instance, it could be, if you lose a deal, you don't say, oh, I'm terrible at this, I'm rubbish, oh, woe is me. It's, what can I learn from this? You might have a tough challenge. And so rather than avoid it, swerve away, don't take it on, you lean into it and think, well, okay, how can I get better at doing this, at dealing with this? When you receive feedback, don't take it too personally. And it can feel incredibly personal. But if we can use it as fuel to improve, then it's a far better way of going about dealing with what's essentially a gift. Now, opposite of growth mindset is a fixed mindset. And fixed mindset people believe that all abilities are set in stone. Yeah, failure, it's a reflection of their worth. They avoid challenges, they resist feedback, and they just don't get better. And the good news is, if you've got growth mindset, you are going to rise above those that just aren't making any effort to get better at what they're doing. So one of the things that is quite powerful for growth is reflection. Now, this can sound as though it's quite complicated, but it really doesn't need to be. All it is looking back on your experiences, good or bad, and basically going, what worked, what didn't work, and what will I do differently next time? 3 basic questions. We can make those slightly more elegant, but ultimately the same thing when we look at sales. And this is by saying, what went well? So celebrate wins. What did you do that worked? Then we can ask, what didn't go as planned? And look, there's no point in not being honest on this, because we're looking for areas that we can say, yeah, you know what, I could have done that better. What did we learn? What did I learn? So at least one key takeaway, let's take something from it that we can use. And what's next? So with that question is driving, how will you apply what you've learned in the next opportunity? So we immediately start to get benefit from it. So the beauty of this kind of reflection is it turns every single experience into a learning opportunity. Small improvements, repeated consistently, lead to massive growth over time. Aggregation of marginal gains. If you've got a bit of a sports background, you might recognise that from Sir David Brailsford, Team Sky, British Olympic cycling team. But this idea, the 1%ers, it's far easier to do the 100 things 1% better than one thing 100% better. So I've been blessed. I've worked with thousands of salespeople, but one person springs to mind, and I mean, she was good. She hit targets, but she wasn't really progressing. And the way it kind of manifested was that she avoided these tough deals, didn't really look for feedback, and start to get quite frustrated when things didn't go her way. So one of the things we did in coaching was introduce the idea of the growth mindset and the power of reflection. And she got into this habit of doing a post-meeting debrief every single time she'd gone to see somebody, asking herself, what is it I could improve? She went as far as getting feedback from a manager and some of her peers. So fair play to that. That's pretty brave. And even though sometimes it was tough to hear, she was using that information and starting to set personal goals for improvement. Yeah, so by having these targets, by having something that she was aiming at, in a space of 6 months, she did go, sounds right, but from good to great. She just got far more confident. Ended up taking on bigger opportunities, and got the results that this commitment to growth reflected. So there's probably quite a lot of stories like this, but this particular one springs to mind. And what makes this kind of important is that it wasn't about being perfect. And she would have said, look, I've never did anything perfectly. No, but absolutely it was about progress. So let me share some tips. So again, if you recognise the structure of the podcast that I've been doing, I've always tried to put some practical tips in. 5 tips I'll give. First one, look, reflect. Said it already. And we've got the opportunity to do this after every sales call. Now, whether you're making a ton of calls a day, whether you're having a couple of meetings, whatever your type and flavour of sales call, couple of minutes to review what went well, what didn't, and what you can improve. Those things can be added into the next, and we will start to see these gains aggregated. Again, said it already, seek feedback. Yeah, ask your manager, ask colleagues. Yeah, if you're working with a buddy, if you're traveling together, go on combined meetings. Even ask your customers. As a customer, if you get asked on how someone could get better, it's actually very, very flattering. It's also going to have an effect on how they perceive you as being highly professional. Yeah, so this isn't about criticism. This is how you can take stuff and how you can grow. I'd also encourage people to learn from others. So look at the top performers. Look at people who are doing stuff really well, people who hit targets, people who've got a great reputation. Yeah. What are they doing that you can incorporate? I mean, probably just about everything normally, but have a look at what is it that makes them special and think, how can I do this? Make an investment in yourself. Yeah, so learning becomes a habit. So read books. Of course, I'm going to say that. Listen to podcasts. Well, you are doing. um, take courses. Oh yeah, it might sound as though, yeah, Fred, it's obvious why you're going to say these things. I say these things because they make a difference, and I want to make a difference. That's why I'm in this space. But absolutely, books, podcasts, courses. There's a ton of stuff out there that you can use to make you better. And set growth goals. So identify something, think about a skill, think about something that you want to improve over the next 30 days. End of 30 days, this is where I want to be better at. And then break that into the smaller, more actionable steps, daily things that you can implement to get you where you want to be in a month's time. When you make this learning part of your daily routine, the growth it's inevitable. It's just going to happen. Just need to know how to go about that, but have that commitment to go about doing it. So, look, as we're going to wrap up mode, learning and growth, it's about adopting this mindset of continuous improvement. Embrace challenges, reflect on experiences. Don't stop looking at ways to get better. So, I've put a challenge in at the end of all of these podcasts in the mini series. Not going to break that habit. So, your challenge off the back of this podcast is after your next sales call, the very next one, having listened to this, spend 5 minutes reflecting on what went well, didn't go so well, and what you'll do differently next time. Do differently could be more of what went well, by the way. Don't think it's all about addressing failures and things which didn't go so well. That's the little challenge. That's it. Nice and simple, but it's the very next sales call. The very next. And remember, best salespeople aren't the ones who know it all. It's the ones who are always learning. So, thank you for joining me on this podcast. Indeed, the whole series, if you listen to it, on the ethical model. I do hope you found the insights, the tips, the stories, some of the things that we've been talking about useful in helping you sell more effectively, more ethically. If you've enjoyed the episode, if you've enjoyed the series, share it with colleagues, subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, get the book. But as always, keep selling ethically, keep growing. Look forward to speaking to you again soon. And if there is anything I can do to help, please, 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 please reach out to me. That's what I'm here to do.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Today podcast with me, your host, Fred Copestake. I hope you've enjoyed what you heard today. If you did, please get in touch and hit subscribe. And remember, you can take the collaborative selling scorecard for free to check out how your sales approach works in today's environment. You'll find it in the show notes.